Good evening. I'll call the meeting of June 23rd to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Muy buenas tardes. Si alguien necesita o desea escuchar interpretación en español, tenemos los aparatos disponibles. Gracias.
Thank you. We have headsets for the hearing impaired if anyone needs them. We'll go on to introductions, proclamations, and presentations or recognitions.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Earlier today, we had the opportunity to see a few of the award-winning projects from the California State Science Fair, and many of our students were award winners, and we have two of them with us tonight. First, we have Michelle Kin. Am I pronouncing your name? Chin, excuse me. If you could come forward with Dr. Drati, Behavioral and Social Sciences Junior Division, Grade 8. She is a former La Colina Junior High School student, and I see David Ortiz is here celebrating her accomplishment. I think she did it though, David. She won for the Art of Praise, and her advisor was Laura, and I can't pronounce her last name. Olveas. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Michelle. Great job. Our second person that was with us here tonight is Liana Mueller. She is also a student, 8th grade student from La Colina Junior High School. Mathematics and Software Junior Division, an honorable mention. IQ, creating a computer game for the blind. Her advisor was David Marchetti, also a teacher at La Colina Junior High School. Let's give a big round of applause to these incredible students. And I forgot to mention that Michelle took third place in her award. I know that these students couldn't have accomplished what they did without great support from their teachers and their principal, but mostly from their parents and their family who are here tonight to support them. If they could please stand so we could recognize them as well. Michelle and Liliana's family. We also had several other winners that couldn't be here tonight. You two ladies can have a seat, and thank you. They were, in Cognitive Science Junior Division, third place, Jacob Kim Sherman, grade 8. His science project was Effects of Inaudible Sounds on Memory Performance. His advisor was Kim Miller, Goleta Valley Junior High School. Chloe Masuri, grade 8, from Santa Barbara Junior High School, Environmental Science Junior Division, third place, In Search of BPA, and her advisor was James Rogers. Then Paul Grossen, grade 8 from Goleta Valley Junior High School, third place in the Mathematics and Software Junior Division, and his experiment was a computer program to track and count particle trails. His advisor was also Kim Miller at Goleta Valley Junior High School. Isabella Hurwitz, a grade 8 from La Colina Junior High School. Honorable mention, Product Science Junior Division, What Does It Take to Make Clean Water in a Contaminated World? And then finally, Gabriella Goldberg, grade 10 from San Marcos High School, Environmental Engineering Senior Division, Fecal Matters, Generating Electricity with... Could you read this for me, Mr. Herron?
No, go ahead.
Microbial fuel cell, and her advisor was Kimberly Tilton, also a teacher at San Marcos High School. Fantastic job. What is the common denominator, board, for the majority of our winners? Their gender.
Girls?
Almost all women. So we're in great hands with the women taking us great places in science education. We have tonight Jennifer Lindsey. And Jennifer, I'd like you to come forward, please. Jennifer Lindsey is a teacher at Harding University Partnership School, and she is our district's Educator of the Year for 2014-15. Why don't you go right over there so everyone can see and you can be seen on television. Jennifer is an innovator, an initiator, and a dynamic member of Harding's 6th grade team. She inspires and impacts the lives of those she comes in contact with every day. She has a very unique way of working with struggling students with empathy and total professionalism. She teaches her students to strive for excellence and instills the importance of being great citizens, not only in her class, but also in the community where they live. She serves as a role model to her peers, not just at Harding, but throughout our district, demonstrating dedication and hard work. She just finished her term as the International Baccalaureate PYP Coordinator at Harding University Partnership. And we have a very small token. It's a plaque recognizing Jennifer as our district's Teacher of the Year. Thank you and congratulations. Enjoy your summer.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the really neat things about Jennifer is that she will be the very first teacher on our perpetual plaque, which will hang in the lobby, as we have started, as board members know, our own recognition of outstanding employees in our district with our Stars Night. And Jennifer is our first Educator of the Year. So, way to go, Jennifer. A quick update on summer school. It started this week. And I will be giving to you on the July 7th board meeting a complete report on all the summer school numbers, but I can tell you that we do, the Santa Barbara Ed Foundation for some reason reported in. They had 323 students enrolled in 11 different classes at their summer program, summer enrichment program at San Marcos High School. And recently, as board members are aware, I and Dr. Ramirez had the distinct honor and pleasure of hanging out with the Council of Mexico, Bernice Diaz Ceballos, and she generously delivered 2 huge boxes of school books in Spanish for students in our community. And the books are for students at different levels, and a couple of those books were in the conference room. Hopefully you were able to see it. We were really able to talk about a lot of things of mutual interest, and I predict with the leadership of Dr. Ramirez that we're going to have a really great partnership, one that we have not had with the Mexican consul from this point forward. Also, it's important to note, Goleta Valley Junior High celebrated its 50th anniversary, and our district next year will celebrate our 150th anniversary, and a lot of work is being done. I want to thank board members that have stepped up to be on our 150th anniversary committee. And finally, San Marcos Alumni Foundation performs the all-alumni production, David Holmes would kill me if I didn't make this announcement, this Friday and Saturday of Spam-A-Lot. So it should be a lot of fun. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Any questions of Dr. Cash? Thank you. The award winners, if you want to get home and enjoy your summer, you can leave any time. You're not captive audiences. But thank you very much for all that you do. We appreciate it.
And you will be on TV on Saturday.
Turn on Channel 18 Saturday at 5 o'clock. Board comments and correspondence. Dr. Paz?
Just want to thank all of the principals we worked with last week for all the graduations. Want to thank all the graduates, and there were a lot of them. I only went to 2 graduations, so and that was a lot.
You shook a lot of hands. Yeah. I went to another graduation, different kind. The Mobile Waterford graduated 100 students at Franklin, and it was marvelous to see these little kids with their binders. They had these 0 to 4 and 5 year olds, or 3 or 4 year olds, have portfolios. They all left. The portfolio was bigger than they were. I mean, it was amazing to see these little kids sing and dance and everything. It was good. Mike Vail did a fantastic job and his staff. I went to the leadership team little function where they ended the year and had a good time doing it, and I appreciated seeing all the leadership there and enjoying themselves at the end of the year. That was a nice sight. And the whole week of professional training that we just went through was was really good. And I happened in on a couple days and sat in on a few sessions, and it was interesting to watch the dedication that these teachers have to work together to create a curriculum that will be better for all the students. I went to La Cumbre for the Fun in the Sun by the United Way. We have Fun in the Sun programs at La Cumbre and at Franklin this year, and they estimate that they'll have some 500 children spending a good amount of time. A lot of it, 3 hours, is literacy. And they have great goals, so what those students will end up with, rather than being idle for the summer, they'll leave and they won't have lost as much memory in the process, and they'll be better off as we get them back into school when school starts again. So it was fun to be there and watch it take place with all these volunteers for Fun in the Sun. Okay. Announcements of closed session action. The discipline cases will be later in the agenda. We did have one motion on a very good event in our district. A motion by Ms. Parker and a second by Ms. Limon to appoint Elise Simmons as principal at La Cuesta and Alta Vista High School. Elise, Dr. Cash?
Well, hey, congratulations. It's really a pleasure to introduce Elise as the new principal at La Cuesta Alta Vista. She began work in our district in 1999 as a social science teacher at La Cumbre Junior High School. And in 2002, she joined the Santa Barbara Junior High School staff teaching social science. In 2011-12, she served as an administrator of special project at Santa Barbara High School and then became an assistant principal, where she has been to this day. We are very thankful that she accepted the position. She's going to do an incredible job following an incredible principal there, Fran Wageneck. Elise, congratulations and welcome to the principal team. We look forward to working with you in that capacity. We know you'll do a great job.
And thank you, John, for letting her go.
My pleasure.
Sure. You almost had one no vote. I won't tell you from who up here, but almost one no vote.
So congratulations, Elise.
And you don't have to stick around either.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any,
The vote was 5-0.
and the vote was 5-0. Yes, I should say that, yeah. And no other announcements from the closed session. Any public comments? No public comments. We'll go to the consent agenda. Any withdrawals from that consent calendar? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. Under comments, I'll make one on item number D7, the second reading and approval of Administrative Regulation 6159.4, behavioral interventions for special education. I'll point out there was one change made on that. Just pointed out it had to do, and it's on the agenda, it's in red, but it's on item number, as a prohibited intervention number 5, eliminated from the sentence that was there last meeting, the comments, except that prone containment or similar techniques may be used by trained staff as a limited emergency intervention. That was removed from the policy. Any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. We have no public hearing. We'll go right into discussion and approval of the LCAP. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is the fourth and final time for the 15-16 school year that you will see this for your approval. However, we will, as you have seen in the data reporting calendar that Dr. Guillermo Juan put together, you'll be hearing about the LCAP throughout the year next year in a more scheduled and systematic way. I want to publicly acknowledge the work of Dr. Ben Drotti again for his tireless efforts in putting together a plan that makes sense, that supports particularly our targeted students, English learners, our foster youth, and our economically disadvantaged youth, and also makes sense in light of all of the work that is being undertaken throughout our district for all students. I'd also really like to publicly acknowledge Meg Jate as well and her team for making certain that everything added up. And as the numbers shifted and the ideas changed throughout, Meg kept a steady eye and a steady hand in paying close attention to the bottom line. And we can't get far without that sort of attention to detail, that dedication, and that professionalism. So with that, we'll let Dr. Drotti, I don't know how much he's going to present since you've been presented to death on this, but
Yeah.
here you go, Dr. Drotti.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, board members, President Herron. The last time, at the last board meeting, you requested certain items to review, and hopefully you provided that information. I believe you had an LCAP from the previous edition with a bunch of highlights to show you where the changes occurred with the new one, so hopefully you were able to review that. And also you were provided a document that showed where the coordination or where those items would be in the actual LCAP. So, and lastly, on one of the last pages of the actual LCAP in section A3, or a description of how some of the services and actions will support the students. We gave you that description as well. So with that said, I can go through, I would like to go through the items unless you want to see another process.
Let's go through the items.
Okay. So I'm going to go through the document you received that showed exactly where the items are. So the first item is materials for construction technology, CTE pathways. And would you like to hear a description of what that does, or is
Do you have a copy of it?
I do. I just need a page number because it's 155 pages.
No, this is the single page
This is a single
document.
page document,
The
yes.
funding?
Yeah.
Yes,
So you have revised.
That I can do.
yes.
A short description.
Short description, okay.
You're going to have them go through each item?
I don't think we need to go through each item, but...
Can we go through the ones where 100, that are 100%
Okay.
Yes,
funding that's coming from there?
yes.
100% funding from LCAP?
Yes,
Yes.
we can definitely do that.
Unless others have
I have a small item, so I'm gonna. So we have 100% funding for library, the 2 elementary librarians. So that's 100% funding for that.
And just to be clear, those librarians would rotate schools?
Yes, yes. So ideally, we would, every school would have a librarian. I mean, eventually that would be the goal, but right now, I believe the two will do the job for now, but that's something that we're excited about. We also have English 9 class size reduction. Here's 100% also. That's just to maintain the current, that's to maintain the decision that was made several years back to keep class size reduction. So we had the option of not doing that.
That was part of the parcel tax originally, so now it's moved into the LCAP? Is it
No,
funded by
that-
part
It
of
was-
it?
I don't know.
wasn't part of the 2012 parcel tax.
You're thinking of math, Mr. Heron.
Pardon?
And it wasn't even the one before it.
Okay.
Okay.
That was always
So
math.
this
has
really
always
goes
been-
back to the 90s when
Yes.
there was money set
Okay,
aside
English,
for
okay.
class size reduction for
Okay.
English and math in 9th grade.
Yes. So the peak program initiative, as you know, we have experimented with the peak program between San Marcos High School and La Cumbre Junior High School, and the results have been astounding in terms of that program being successful. Because of that, we are expanding the program to Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High School. But I believe we're going to have a report soon on
Yeah,
how
you'll
that
get a
works.
full report. Board members have already seen the data sheet on the results from just the west side, and this is continuing that and expanding it to the east side. And if you'd like to, you have an opportunity to go see the first part of it, which is the bridge program, which is at Santa Barbara High School. That's going on, either started this Monday or it starts next Monday.
So the work on cultural proficiency will continue. We are increasing, we did increase the allocation to support that initiative, and we have some plans at some point we'll be presenting to you of how we're using those funds to support the schools, have the necessary conversations, and are making the necessary decisions to support our students.
I guess that brings up a question that I was thinking of, and I think you just answered it.
Yes.
A lot of these are big numbers,
Yes.
but is this document a authorization for the district to do these things, or will you be coming back with some of these things?
No, this is an authorization for us to do it.
So even though they're general in nature with no specifics,
Well, you've seen the equity plan for Just Communities, and we plan to implement that.
I'm talking about a lot of these, the big numbers, that I don't know if we've seen the details behind them as to what it all involves, but it's just a question I have. It's just, are there any limitations on any of these dollars as far as bringing programs, like Dr. Andrade just said, something he's going to bring back how we're going to spend this money? So
It was, you've seen the 3-year plan already. Obviously, as a part of as a part of the reporting that Dr. Graham Wan is going to report out, that's what I meant by that. A lot of these programs that I believe you guys requested that we have some kind of program evaluation for those.
Okay.
So, for example, the PEAK program I mentioned, although some of you have seen the results in the community engagements we've had, we haven't done a board presentation on that exact program.
All of the details for every one of these is in the LCAP,
okay, thank you.
and they're reference to the goals on the far left-hand side.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. The EOD support, after-school tutoring, and library access, we started that last year, and we want to continue that. So that's just to ensure that there's library access and internet access to students that want to, that need support in terms of tutoring. So every secondary school and every elementary school is going to have that available for students to use. Extended learning time for 7th through 9th math. That will still continue. That's just to ensure that students that are coming to secondary schools that are behind in math have the extra support they need for reteaching, pre-teaching, and other supports they need to be successful in the general ed classes that they'll be taking. Math is going to be one of those areas that is going to be very challenging for our system. So we have to ensure that our students are staying afloat, not sinking, and that's this program is a part of supporting that. So I'm trying to make the beeline across there. So
High school credit recovery.
high school credit recovery. That's to support the high school students. As students fail classes, they need to recover those credits. And it's a struggle when you fail the English class. A lot of times in the master schedule, the student does not have room to retake that course. So this online program allows for students to double up on some of these courses that they failed. Extended time for summer math support. This is a continuation of our extended learning time that occur during the school year. We recognize that we have to extend the time if we're going to accelerate student learning in math, we have to know exactly what they need in order to accelerate them. We also have to identify times that we can use to catch them up. One of those is them having double blocks, and if that but that can't be it. It's got to be in the summertime. Is a time where we can actually bring them back and really support them. So this year we started our program to support especially the high school math teachers with the summer, not just for credit recovery, but for what we call learning recovery. Credit recovery is going to be for all subject areas, but this is specific to math. The difference between the needs for math with Common Core, between what the need for Common Core and the previous CSD model for math is that testing for students to be successful is at every grade level. So if you're a 9th grade student going to a 10th grade or going to 11th grade, you will be assessed in the Math 3 concepts. And no longer is it that you'll be assessed in the math class that you're taking. So as a result, we have to make sure that we provide all the supports necessary to keep the students growing in math. SHMOOP, is that 100%? Let me see.
Yep.
You'll have to tell me if it's 100%, and I'm gonna look down this line. Okay, SMOOP is a online program. It's a test prep program for SAT, AP, and IB courses. So it's an online program that we purchased. And a lot of times our students have to go to outside resources to get test prep in those areas. So this is a program that's really going to help our students access that. Our teachers like it, our students are using it, and it's a great program for us.
In particular, this is for students that are economically disadvantaged. This is, it's very sophisticated and very, very, very research proven, and it's free now. Yeah.
When can they start using that? At one point in time?
As soon as
you approve it.
As soon as you approve it, we'll buy it. They can start.
We have
I mean, in terms of grade levels for students, when's the best time they can start accessing it?
Junior high.
Okay.
Yes. We have piloted this summer, and that's how we know it's a very popular program.
So wait, you said it's free now? Do you mean it becomes free once we buy it?
It's free to the students. Typically, SAT, AP, IB test prep is very expensive for families to pay for.
But it's only free because we're buying it, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not free to us, it's free to the kids.
Right, okay, yeah, okay.
Okay, elementary science project-based learning, and many of you are familiar with the Engineering Academy. And as a district, we really like the work, the type of teaching, the type of learning that takes place within the Engineering Academy. We want to expand that type of teaching to the other sites, primarily to elementary. So we have released a teacher from one of the elementary sites to go work with the Engineering Academy and observe and assist and come back with a body of knowledge to bring back to elementary sites to help us with our, to help expand that knowledge to the other sites. Okay, Learning Ally is a program that supports dyslexic students. So it's a program that the students use to be able to access the content in all the different subject areas. So we don't want dyslexia to be a barrier for students to be able to take the courses they need to take to be successful. Restorative approaches, we will still continue that. As you know, that's one of our main initiatives. So we have to continue to fund that. Our HOP program is a program that is a program that we have used at 2 of the high schools. Santa Barbara High School. It has really been one of the pieces of their RA program that's been very successful. It incorporates the students in the RA process, in the restorative approaches process. So we liked what is done for Santa Barbara High School, and we want to expand it to Dos Pueblos and San Marcos. The YSS counseling will still continue as usual, so that's to help our students socio-emotionally. Translation and interpretation services. So we have an entire language access process that we have developed to help our schools manage the language needs for our parents in terms of interpretation and translation. So these funds are there to help support the initiatives that come from district office, but the sites will also have their individual plans that they'll support with their site funds. Director of English Language Services, that's been a great addition to our district leadership program. It's a part of the reason why programs such as the language access or even our reclassification process has been very successful. You probably have not seen the results of that yet, but it's been very transformative, and I'm sure we'll be having a report on that pretty soon. DLAC program, we want to continue to support DLAC, and we've always have, and we want to continue that. So the Visual and Performing Arts project, we have appointed a director to support that program, and I believe you met Donna Rosoni already, so that's to support. Was I supposed to? Yes, she's been named already, so. The BLAST program is a peer tutoring program that we're going to start with at Dos Pueblos and at La Cuesta. It's a program that identifies students that used to struggle in math that we would use as tutors for younger students. So it's a process that we're going to engage in. It's very successful in a lot of districts around the country. We ran across it. We ran across it with some teachers that mentioned how successful that program is. So we looked into it, and we think it can be something very viable for us.
It's really related to the strength-based work that we did earlier this year.
Okay, the Academy for Success. It's now, it used to be what we call the Expedition Academy, but and you knew about that. But right now, we changed the name to Academy for Success. We are expanding that to San Marcos and Santa Barbara High School. The data at Dos Pueblos High School has been very successful. And again, during the LCAP data cycle, you'll get a report of how successful it's been. But because of those numbers, we wanted to quickly expand to San Marcos and Santa Barbara High School.
I think they had at DP all but one senior graduate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Jwadi.
Okay.
Questions?
This. Oh.
Any other questions, or I can entertain?
Dr. Paz? No? Ms. Idelson? Ms. Limon?
Well, sure. Thank you, Dr. Odradi. I actually really wanted those kind of read into the public statement, just because I know in prior discussions we had talked about percentages and intentions and so forth, and so I wanted those read. Okay. I have a question about something we didn't talk about because it's not LCAP, but it's one-time funding, which is the Common Core Professional Learning. And so we, in a separate document, we also got, I think it was on consent, right?
No.
Right.
Expenditures.
The expenditures, and it went up significantly. And one of the, I think, pieces that it mentioned was instructional materials. Are those books?
Yes and yes.
Yes,
but,
okay.
But we're not, we have not brought forward any adoptions.
Right. No, but just generally, it's an expectation that within the year, we may bring forward some books.
To adopt?
To adopt?
Probably not.
Not. So then the instructional materials, because it went up so significantly from...
Are you talking about the Common Core Expenditure Report?
Yes.
That's for 2 years.
That's for the last
total
2 years.
2 years.
Right.
So Common Core is gone, it's spent. This is the new money that we've talked about a little bit last night about how we have a $6.7 million and we put some away for summer professional development.
Okay.
That's what this is.
All right, I'm getting those confused. Thank you.
I do have
Ms.
one
Adelson?
question. So Ms. Limon talked about the things that are 100%, but on the items that are 54%, is that because there seems to be many of them that are that?
That's our unduplicated pupil count.
Okay, okay. Got it.
Okay. Dr. Cash, any comments?
No, just again, I want to thank Dr. Drotti. This is a beast of a process to engage in, and we look forward to implementing and reporting back to you pursuant to the calendar of reporting that Dr. Guillermo Juan, putting a lot of pressure on her back there, created for the board and our community.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Drotti.
Yeah.
Let's go to F2, adoption of Santa Barbara Unified.
Well,
Oh, we need a motion on that?
yeah, it's an action item.
Really? Okay. Gee, look, okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the local control accountability plan for 2015 to 18.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, the budget.
Turn it over to Ms. Jete.
Good evening and thank you. Tonight, the Santa Barbara Unified School District staff has prepared the fiscal year 2015-16 adopted budget report for the board's review and approval. The 2015-16 adopted budget projects a fund balance of the general fund that meets or exceeds the minimum recommended reserve requirement for 3% for the current and 2 subsequent years. That gives us a positive certification once again. All of our assumptions are based on the governor's release for the May revise, and as we completed this budget and pretty much put it to bed, it all changed. A lot of it all changed, so it's as good as the paper that it's written on at this point. The state general fund revenues increased from the January proposal by $6.7 billion over the 3-year forecasts of 13-14, 14-15, and 15-16. Part of those increases that you see on the screen right now are the decrease of the cost of living, or what we call the COLA. It went from 1.58 to 1.02. The gap funding went from 32% to 53%, and now it's back down to 51%. The budget, you will see that all these corrections on the first interim. We have some one-time funding of approximately anywhere from $500 to $601 per average daily attendance. We budgeted $500 because we budget conservatively. It will not be $601, but it will be somewhere between the $500 and the $601. The staff will prepare a plan to spend that money because it is quite a bit of money, and then with the board's approval, so we'll bring it back. And that money is in the assigned ending fund balance as we discussed yesterday. Even though Proposition 98 maintenance factor was reduced, not all conditions were met to pull the trigger for the Proposition 2 deposit for this rainy day fund. Therefore, we can exceed the 6% reserve. The Career Tech, we have 3-year phase-in funding. There's more details to come with this. It is based on ADA, but a range of ADA, and it's the actual, what I understand is the actual kids enrolled in our the ROP program. The increase on ongoing funding for special education should cure our contribution at $4.76 per ADA. I'm being facetious.
It will not
No, no one laughed, so I guess that wasn't a good. QIA, there was mention in the governor's budget about school districts who did not receive the concentration grant, they were going to give us some CUIA money. I have not heard if that actually made it or not, but we should know the first week of, have a better idea the first week of July. Still, no state bonds, no increase in home-to-school transportation, no relief on increase of cost of STRS or PERS. The next items are to consider regarding the demands on the future. These items that have reduced the state revenues, the district and the increase in district expenditures remains the same as in second interim. So the loss of state revenue due to sales tax and the personal income tax will slow down the recovery effort to reach the district's target amount in 2021. And in the fact that the continual growth of cost of PERS and STRS, the district expenditures may outpace the gap funding.
Mr. Tague, can you read into the record those items that have a demand on future revenue?
Sure. 2016-17, the increase of the quarter-cent sales tax and use tax expires in 2016-17. Also, our parcel tax expires in June of 2017. 2017-18, our regional occupation ROP program that's partially funded by the county will stop. There will be no more funding on that. 2017-18, the increase to personal income tax will also expire. That's for anyone who exceeds $250,000 a year. This is approximately $9 billion of the state revenues that will disappear in those years. No plan for a statewide bond, and the CalSTRS PERS increased demand on future LCFF funds over the next 6 years is an estimated to be for this district about $10 million with PERS and STRS.
So it's fair to say if all of those things happen, there's a tremendous effect on our budget.
I agree.
Well, they're all going to happen except for one may not happen.
Well, there may be the sales tax might, by the vote of the people.
Oh, right.
And the,
yes.
You know, and
yeah,
okay.
the people could yes, you're right. I'm sorry.
And the personal income tax. So, but bottom line is, for future reference, everything we spend today needs to be done in light of what might happen in the next couple of years.
Okay.
Thank you.
So unrestricted activity, as you can see, the local control funding formula, the increase between the estimated actuals and the adopted budget went up $10 million, and that's due to, in 14-15, 29% was the gap funding on a larger number, and now it's 53% on a little bit lesser number, but it is still a large increase for us. The federal revenues on the unrestricted side is MA. Until we see the MA in our banks, we don't budget for it because there's such a delay. Other state revenue, this big gap from 3.2 or the increase 3.2 to 9.1 million is the one-time funding and the reduction of the one-time mandated funding that we got in 14-15. The other local revenue is a decrease to the CTE ROP program that we now fund fully on that $245,000, and the decrease also is due to some of the E-rate money, not as much E-rate money as we got in 14-15. The unrestricted expenditures, there's quite a few things that changed in this. It includes, for salaries and benefits, it includes 1.5% in step and column, the new VAPA coordinator, preschool coordinator, 2 librarians, expansion of the program for effective access to college, or PEAK, CTE, Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy, science teachers, expansion of the Academy for Success, science teacher on special assignment, maintenance, director of education technology services, payroll specialist, community resource coordinator, and then of course the PERS and STRS workers' compensation, and the 1% increase to the health insurance that we do every year. The books and supplies, the increase is due to mostly routine restricted maintenance and supplies, and then the parcel tax allocation to equipment. So we have moved some integrators, coaches, and music teachers over to the general fund, and then increased the site's budget for their technology program or plan. And so you don't really see the salaries waiver because we're just moving them from one bucket into another in salaries, one fund into another. So you don't really see the difference, but you do see the difference in the supplies because now their supplies budget will go up. Services, Blast, Naviance, and Shmoo. And the increase in water rates and an 8% increase in transportation cost. Not much change in capital outlay. We have a slight on the restricted side of the budget. Unrestricted fund balance, is a surplus in the ending fund balance, and that is due mostly to the one-time funding of mandated money. On the restricted side, every year we reduce the federal funds by 10%, and we do not, on the adopted budget for donation accounts. So the decrease in the revenue is going to also be reflective in the reduction of expenditures on the restricted side. And we do this because the federal government doesn't approve their budget until September. And then the donations, they don't know exactly how much they're going to get, and we don't get promissory notes until like during the summer, first part of the fall. So we don't budget for anything that we don't have a documentation that the sites will pay. In the restricted and other financing uses, there's just a slight decrease in the contribution. And then the restricted fund balance, you can see that in 14-15, we really spent down our fund balance, which is exactly what we should be doing in the restricted side of the budget. And we're left with just a slight ending fund balance as adopted budget. The reserves, the next slide, or the graph, the district reserves and net ending fund balance, you can see that the restricted amount is just a hair on 15-16, and we plan to have all of it spent every year. We always budget that. But you can see the bar going down. In 15-16, it's all because of that one-time funding, and we don't have the expenditures on that side either. But so you see a big drop in 16-17 because that's where I figured most of it will be spent in 15-16. I just didn't know where. We didn't have a plan, so it just rolls over into the next year to account for it. These numbers will change because of the gap funding. As I mentioned before, it went from 12% in 16-17 to 35%, and then 18% in 17-18, and it went also again to 35%.
On that chart, the words above the chart, just want to compliment Mr. Tayan. I like the wording. There should be wording if you scroll. Yeah. I like this wording much better than the Centerville School District policy, which is the minimum 3% balance that the state requires to be retained. That makes it very clear that that's not our policy, but that's what the state says we have to have. Mm-hmm. So I like that. Personally like that language better.
Good. Okay, so the components of ending fund balance we discussed in depth yesterday. Okay. So if there's no questions, we can keep moving on. Okay, so we're at the attendance or in our enrollment projections. We have a slight increase for 15-16 of the projection of 14,330, and then it drops back down to 14,234, and then pretty much flattens out for 17-18. Below it is just the enrollment projections per grade span. Now that we report this way, it's really nice to see it in this format. And then our unduplicated pupil count is, I'm projecting that it will stay at 54%, but Dr. Ramirez has told me that they've reclassified a lot of EL students, so we should, if they are not free and reduced or a foster child, that percentage will go down, which means our supplemental target will go down, which means our gap will go down, which means the supplemental funding will go down, which is not, it's good news. Not that the funding's going down, but the kids are reclassified. So our multi-year projections are based on the LCFF calculator as it was before, and it has been since LCFF came into play. But the COLA up there is 1.02% for 15-16, and then 1.6 and 2.4 for the out years respectively. The gap funding, as I mentioned before, has changed from 12.62 to 35 and from 18.24 to 35%. And 17-18 is so far out there. The gap funding changes even in the middle of the year sometimes. So, you can't put a lot of weight into these out years, as we all learned when we were doing our 2011, 2012 budgets. We would have never expected a 22% deficit at that particular time. So, 3 years out is pretty far out. So the only thing that I want to kind of mention here is the salary and benefits. You see that it goes up in 16-17 and then goes down in 17-18. Basically, if you look at the SACS report, it actually has a $4.3 million in the classified section of the multi-year projection. And that is just so that everyone sees, and it's very obvious how much I was expecting that we were going to have to cut to make our 3% reserve. However, now that the percentages have changed for the gap funding, that too will change, and I've done a quick calculation, and I'm looking at maybe a 1.1 million and not a 4.3 million. So that is good news also.
You'll find that on page 185, line item 2D is the 4,346,000 that she's talking about.
And you remember when we were doing all those cuts, I wanted to make sure that it was seen, because you could bury it somewhere in the the supplies and the services, and I just think it's more, it's a better place to put it. We're not saying we're going to cut them out of classified or certificated, and it's just there's limited space on that form. So in the out years, as far as the revenues are concerned, we've already mentioned about what those years are, the cuts in revenue. We've already spoken about that. In all other cases, we've kind of left the revenue flat, except with the exception of when we have QIA and we had the one-time mandated funding. In the salaries and benefits, the same sort of situation is going on there, with a 1.5% each year due to step and column, and then an increase on the employer side of STRS and PERS. STRS will go up 1.85% every year, and PERS is expected to go up 1.2% in 16-17 and 3.55 in 17-18. Remember, at the end of those 7 years, we should be paying 39% in PERS and STRS. The next page is our graph about how PERS and STRS contribution is projected, and you can see it goes up a lot, from 7.25, which was in 13-14, to 18.85, if all our assumptions remain the same. On the next slide, we had the new revenue coming in and how much the PERS and STRS will be. As you can see, PERS and STRS is the red bar, and the additional revenue that we get each year due to gap funding and the COLA is the blue. So you can see that the PERS and STRS are outpacing the revenue. However, I go back to those gap percentages again. We're going from 12, this is all based on 12% and 18%, now we're at 35. So those will change come first interim. The next few pages are all about the other funds. There's also, on page 27, there's the local control funding formula, which we're all pretty aware of. Page 28, there's a calculator that kind of just gives you a summary of the revenues coming in and how they're allocated. And then there's the LCAP minimum proportionality percentage, or what we lovingly call MPP, because we love acronyms in the education. So I don't know if you have any questions about this. Do you need any further explanation about this? But this is where we get the number that should tie and does tie to the district's LCAP. And you see in the very middle section here, the 8.664909 ties into your Excel sheet that Dr. Drotti was just going over. And basically, this is an accumulative effect. So on 13-14, that's how much money, the prior year money we had for EIA. And then we added another 2.7 in 14-15, so now we have the combination of that. And to 15-16, we start off with 4.9 million in the supplemental. So when you see 8.6, that's not like 8.6 of new money. This is an accumulative expenditure. So we spent 4.9 in 14-15, now we added 3.7 to get to the 8.6. And the reason why we do that is, at the top of that sheet, there's 11.9 under 15-16. That is our brand new supplemental target. So it says, okay, you spent 4.9 last year, you have 7 million left to reach your target. We're going to put a 53% on that, and that gives you the 3.7. You add that to the 4.9, voila, you get the 8.6. So then the 8.6 goes to the next year, and so on and so on and so on. And you can see in the dark orange how it grows out to 2021. We're only 2.3 million from our target. So, and as you remember, the gap gets smaller because it goes into the floor of the calculation. So the gap gets smaller, but the percentage is on the smaller gap. So you have the big gap, and every year the gap gets smaller. So the percentage on that gap, it works both ways, you know. So I just wanted to put this in there so that you understood how we're getting to the numbers that are in the LCAP. So it's just an informational piece. There will be no quiz on it or anything like that. So, and with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Ms. Adelson?
So with something you said earlier about the, as less students are in the identified area, so this could all change, though, correct?
Yeah. So what I was thinking about, okay, so if you reclassify 1,000 kids, how many of those 1,000 kids are still in free and reduced? If they all are, we're solid, we're the same. But if they're not, that percentage will go down.
Got it.
So then you put it in the calculator, and the calculator says, oh, your target is not 11.96, it's 10. I don't know what it will be, I'm just making that up. But so then it will change your whole calculation.
Right.
So I mean, we could have very little money added to our supplemental next year.
Got it.
Or not. I don't know what the unduplicated pupil count will be until October.
Further questions?
I'd like to make,
Dr. Paz?
I was going to say the big elephant in the room is the PERS and STIRS contributions in the future years. And it's just like, wow, that is huge.
Well, hopefully the state will do well and start helping us fund that. Any questions on the criterion standards?
Was that a hope or a prayer?
That's a both.
Both.
Okay.
thank you. I'd like to make a motion for the adoption of the Santa Barbara Unified School District 2015-2016 fiscal year budget.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Tay, and your
Thank
staff.
you.
We appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much.
I'll tell them.
Okay, we have student discipline case number 201415-41. Ms. Parker?
In case 21415-41, I move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendation for a full school year expulsion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. We have case number 201415-42.
In case 201415-42, I move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendation for a full school year expulsion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Case number 201415-43.
In case 201415-43, I move to approve the stipulated agreement for a suspended expulsion for 1 school year.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Case number 201415-45.
And in case 201415-45, I move also to approve the stipulated agreement for a 1 school year suspended expulsion.
I'll second it.
Under discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll go on to F7, the approval of Resolution 2014-15-50 and the spending plan. And there is an addendum that copies are in the back table, and we have them at our place for the actual plan for the state education protection account funds received in fiscal year 2015-16.
It's also on the website now. So with that, I'll ask Mr. Tedeschi.
Good evening. Once again, we're back here like each year in June, bringing you a resolution to approve the spending plan for the education protection account funds that we receive each year. This is another one of those sorts of funding that will be going away in 2017-18. It came about from Proposition 30 a few years back. And so we ask you to approve the resolution 2014-15-50, approving the spending plan of $2,735,292, which in its entirety will be spent on instructional salaries and benefits. Are there any questions? This is a pretty standard annual thing until the funding expires. And I can...
Dr. Paz?
No.
No? Any questions? No. Do I have a motion?
Make the motion to approve Resolution 2014/15-50 and the spending plan for the State Education Protection Account EPA funds received in fiscal year 2015-16.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
F8, for the approval of school specialty premier for the purchase of executive function curriculum for 2015-16 school year.
This is a matter that the board has heard about previously from Ms. Rodriguez, and this is the opportunity for our special ed department to purchase this. But Ms. Rodriguez and Mr. Starron are here.
Good evening. In order for us to support students with executive functioning deficits, we researched and found an executive functioning curriculum that we are seeking board approval. Principals, special education teachers, and CPAC representatives have had an opportunity to provide input. At this time, I would like Mike Starron to share the professional learning process of the executive functioning curriculum.
Good evening. So once we figured out that this was a growing need with the transition to Common Core, we developed a 6-series professional learning sessions for our special education teachers, and we implemented those in the PLCs throughout this school year, focusing on everything from what executive functions are to how they develop over time to what is the best way to address each of the 6 different areas that they might fall into or where deficits may be. Simultaneously, as Ms. Rodriguez pointed out, we started vetting different curriculums and kind of settled on one that we thought would be very that we could implement quickly and would have a nice positive effect on our students. So once we had vetted it through our department, principals, CPAC committee, we then set up a training. And that training took place last week. We had about 27 teachers from the district, mostly secondary teachers, the vast majority from the high schools. The intent with this is to implement immediately in any individualized instruction class and then go ahead and implement it as needed in other areas. So for example, like La Cumbre has discussed implementing it in their 3-period block area. So the idea being that it's not a panacea. It's not something that can take the place. Like it's not gonna be a full 50 minutes or a full 90 minutes if you're at San Marcos. But what we had the teachers do while they were there is begin creating a pacing guide. So they used the materials that they obtained from school specialty and started building out a calendar for the entire year. The intent is to bring the presenter back in August and have him completely train any teacher who will be providing instruction who will be providing instruction in an II class, and any other teacher who's interested, so that we can have a full rollout at the secondary level, and then there are 4 elementary schools that are interested in participating. So if the board has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Did we have samples that you got for the training last week?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Actually, each of the teachers walked away with their teacher kit.
So we have them?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this is already received?
Yes.
So we're approving something that's already done?
I assume the answer is yes to that question.
Oh, okay. Any discussion?
Well, I guess normally we would take a look at curriculum, or it would be available, so I would love at some point for it to be available for board members just to take a look at. If we could have that, that would be great. I mean, obviously, I understand that you want to get going on this, and I don't have a problem with approving it tonight, but I'd like to take a look at it. And I'll go ahead and get a motion on the table. I'd move to approve the school specialty premier for the purchase of the executive function curriculum for the 15-16 school year.
Second. Under discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
F9. Approval of a contract for upcoming September workshop with Allen November.
Mr. Rickman.
Good evening. Earlier this year, we had Allen November come out and do a workshop for our principals. What came out of that was the principals' desire. They thought it was great that they got the information, but they felt like they needed, at our secondary schools, their assistant principals to also go through the training along with some key members of their staff. So this is an attempt to accomplish that. We, as a tech group, our tech coaches, we discussed doing the training ourselves, but people felt very strongly that it's one thing to watch his TED Talks and read his blog, and it's another thing to experience him. So that's what we're attempting to do with this.
Dr. Paz?
Just a quick question of how many people are we doing for this training?
We're hoping
Estimate.
between 50 and 60 people.
Ms. Parker?
No, Mr. Heron and I at least got a chance to see him. He's really very, very good, and I think would be beneficial to bring.
My only concern is that the way this reads, it's really for teachers to get a lesson plan for the first 5 days of school. But this is not going to be training for teachers.
There will be teachers attending.
There will be?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because
yeah, and he's going to talk about, like he did when you attended, the keys, the first 5 days of school, to what teachers can do during those first 5 days.
And this is but this is after the first 5 days. And I just was curious.
Correct. It's yeah. So he puts you experienced him. Yeah. He just kind of goes all over the place. So I think initially we can change that to whatever we need to. He wants to talk about the first 5 days in the broader context of implementing technology in the classroom.
Okay.
What date?
Ms. Idelson?
Looking, have you chosen a date?
The 8th and the 9th.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I believe that's
right.
on the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Paz? No. Do I have a motion?
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract for upcoming September workshop with Alan, November.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Under discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Parker and I did attend, I attended part, and Ms. Parker, I think, spent the whole day. So that when they come back, if any of the other three of you want to sit in on some of it, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
We'll go to the conference agenda. A report on Government Accounting Standards Board's GASB Statement 45.
Ms. Chate.
Yeah, we're going to go all accounting on you now. So this is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, Gatsby 45. The primary objective to this statement is to improve accounting and financial reporting by state and local governments for pensions. It also has information provided by the state and local government employers about financial support for pensions that is provided. As you are aware, the district has an unfunded liability in the amount of about $15 million and is on a pay-as-you-go method. This is done through payroll and is an employer cost. This funded liability will be moved from the footnote on a district's audit reports to a balance sheet item. Therefore, the district's liability increased without an asset to offset it. If the district had an irrevocable trust, which could only be used to fund that liability, the funded it each year, it would not only offset liability, but it would also increase the discount on the actuarial study, which would then decrease the liability. Currently, the rating agencies such as Moody's and Standard & Poor's, who rate our bonds and our tax anticipation revenue notes, or TRAN, for the district takes into consideration the district's unfunded liability and has an effect on our ratings. If the district had an irrevocable trust, it would help improve the district's ratings. The district could earmark a fund and make deposits in it each year to help fund the district's liability. However, it would not be recognized by Gatsby 45 and is as an offset to our post-employment benefits, or OPEB. Staff recommends that the district funds its OPEB liability each year in an irrevocable trust. And I'm here to answer any questions.
We really need some direction, and if so, we'll interview vendors and bring back one that we've selected.
Dr. Paz.
I just want to thank staff for the way that this was presented, because I really like the one option and the second option, even though we're really trying to focus on one particular. That's one comment. And the second is, so the basic difference between one and the other is one has a little more flexibility, the other one, we're tied into it, but it doesn't count against our books so much. And that's what we're talking about in the irrevocable trust. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the one that isn't funded, isn't recognized, you can use it for alternative liquidity, which helps our ratings too, but, you know, so but the liability will always be there.
Ms. Parker?
Can you explain a little bit more about that that the district is allowed to reimburse itself its current year's pay-go amount out of the trust?
So as the liability goes down because we're funding it, and the discount rate changes, we can't nail it that we've put in. It could be $14.8 million, and we've put in $14.9 million. So at the end that we have that the funding is not necessary anymore, that $100,000 will be refunded to the district. It doesn't sit in that irrevocable trust.
Okay.
If you're looking for direction, I obviously feel, not obviously, I would like to state that the irrevocable trust seems much more of the way to go.
Have you given any thought to how many dollars are we talking about on a yearly basis?
Well, what we were thinking about is, right now we currently fund our PARs, which is our retirement that we've done 2, and they're about $500,000 apiece. We have 15-16 left of one and 16-17 left of that one, so we have 2 more years to fund those 2, and then we have 3 more years to fund the second one. Yes. So one will end in 16, will be our last one, and then the other one will end in 17. So we could take, since it's already in the budget, we've budgeted for it, we could take that $500,000 and put it towards there every year. And then when the second one disappears, we can put in $1 million. It's just a suggestion.
We'll bring forward a plan, but that's what we've talked about so far.
Yeah. And that makes it easier for me, because with all the uncertainty we just got through talking about in the next 3 or 4 years, to put money into an account that we can't
Access.
sort of flies in the face of reality. And especially when we have some deficit years coming out, where don't have a balanced budget. So I'm just concerned that to put money away when we might need it, although I agree with putting it away. You know, I'm very much in putting as much money away as we can that we can't touch. But I don't want to tie your hands in the future as to what the board can and can't do either. So it's a fine balance.
I think you're correct. There's a fine balance, but I think we may end up paying for that flexibility in the future as opposed to trying to deal with it now and making the commitment that we have to deal with that sooner or later. And I think at some point in time, we're going to pay for it. And
at some point, a board will have to pay that money.
Okay, so I think you have, Mr. Leon?
So I would agree. I think it's important to plan for what our schools have historically gone through and those times of uncertainties. I also just want to be careful, too, when the plan comes forward. I am all for especially considering, our needs, but I also, the other side of need is, I don't want it to take away from other things we should be doing, whether we need them or not, to move the district forward. So I just want to, I want to put money away. I don't know if I want to put all the money away, because I do think it then takes away from some potential work that we could do.
And we're not committed to put any amount of money. We can fund it or we cannot fund it 1 year, 2 years. We could put $1 in. It's completely up to the board's discretion.
I think the construct is that we open up it's like opening up our savings account. And as soon as we start putting it in a particular format, then we know what we're going to do. And then the board, each time staff brings forward a recommendation, the board will have the opportunity to say, that's too much, that's not enough. What are we going to do with this?
I think we have a speaker.
Yeah, just real quick, I want to make a point on the second pro on the list is the investment flexibility. When money is set aside at the county treasury, it's subject to the government code's restricted investment policy, and right now that's earning probably less than 1%. And this irrevocable trust allows much more opportunity to be able to earn a higher rate of return, which can be pretty significant when you're looking for long-term investing and funding of these types of things. So that's definitely, I wanted to kind of clarify that pro is pretty significant as our funds in the treasury are really restricted as to what kind of earnings it can receive. So.
And that's a really good point. And I was talking to some people about this, and I say, well, yeah, the market can crash. We've seen that happen. But we're in this for the long haul. This is not, we need to get to $15 million in 5 years. Yeah. This is a ways out. We need to get this funded, and every dime we put into it helps us in our ratings and all kinds of things. But as Conrad said, it's going to fluctuate with the market, but it can also.
Over time, you end up.
Right.
There's lots of models that we can look at. We've looked at some already in relationship to this. So.
I had a question. Can it be a combination model where it's some of one type and? Or do you pretty much have to?
It's one or the other. It's either revocable or irrevocable.
Got it. But I'm just saying, so a portion of money could be put in an irrevocable, and you could have some in a non.
Well, yes, Well, you could. That would be maybe no different than a savings account, though, too, or a designated fund.
Yeah, I mean, well, you could commit fund balance for that in a particular fund. The board could do that and say, this is for OPEB, and that would give you the option to, at some point, if you really needed it, you could take action to uncommit it to use it for something else if you had that part here in the Treasury and not in the trust. I imagine you could do a hybrid of both if you really
Like
wanted
Fund
to.
17.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Direction, okay. Okay, report on programs of choice at OAS and Washington Elementary Schools.
Well, we have those two great principals here with us tonight. First, we'll ask Ms. Millian to come forward and make her report about OAS.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Cash and President Herron and members of the board. I'd first like to just bring you up to speed with our student demographics. And for our 2013-2014 school year, the number of students we had enrolled was 137. The percent of girls enrolled, 49%. Percent of boys enrolled, 51%. The percent of 2 or more races, 6%. Our English learners, 9.7%. The percent, 1.5% of our percent of American Indian Alaskan. Percent of Filipino, 0%, 0% of Black or African American. Our Hispanic or Latino, 38.8%. Percent of Asian, 0%. White, 45%, 48.5%. And our percent of low SES students, 41.8%. And students with disabilities, 22.4%. And if you scroll up a little bit, or down, I should say, I mentioned also that our enrollment right below the chart for the 2014-2015 ended at 151. We had some attrition over the year, and some of it was related to the fact that kids were there was an opening at some other school sites, okay, and they lived within that attendance area. So that happened throughout the year, but we ended up with more students at the end than we did at the end of 13-14, and we had 51% female, 49% male, 18% English learners. So if you look back up there for the 13-14, we had 9.7. So we have almost doubled our English learner population. And we also, which comes to about 27 students at our school. And we had a decrease actually in our SPED student population down to 12%. That I just wanted to report on there. So if we look now at our recruitment practices, we hold monthly tours in the spring for our families to visit the campus. We distribute brochures to child development centers, visit preschools to inform families about OAS, inform the school community and community at large at kindergarten enrollment, and involve parents and staff in recruitment processes. And we invite the community to our all-school meetings, which we have 3 of a year. And some of the topics we covered this year were health and nutrition, the importance of outdoors in a child's life. We invited Elaine Gibson to come and speak from the Natural History Museum. And we also had our first family math night. And let's see, and we also, our last one for the year was focused on our alumni, who we invited back to speak about what they're doing now and going off to college and what's happening in their lives. And then we also advertise our school-wide events, the Festival of Lights, and our Spring Musical Festival, which we had this past year. And funding sources, we were fortunate to receive a generous sum of money, $1,000 from the Volunteer Family Foundation. Individuals also donate to our school. OAS partners are the Masonic Lodge and Antioch University, OAS parents, OAS alumni and their families, and we have our foundation and grants, which we had the good fortune to receive a $1,000 library grant this year. Okay, I've put in some CST data. I know that's kind of we're moving on from that, but this is, I wanted to just bring to light a little bit here about while we did not make AYP over the last several years, up to 2013, we did grow in our API by 40 points from 2012 to 2013. And I noticed though, and there's an error up here, we did meet 7 out of 9 criteria. It shouldn't be not met. One of the areas where we were not proficient was in English language arts. And the other thing that we've done systematically this year is we have our students have participated in the SRI testing. So that is our one of the types of assessments we are doing school district-wide, and it was implemented at our schools to measure our students' lexile levels. And this is going to be really helpful information for us going forward in looking at where our students are at and how they can improve. So the other thing I wanted to mention was that we'll be examining that at the beginning of the year, and we also have our CFAs, and in both math and in language arts, which we all participated in, our students did this year. So that will be other data we'll be looking at going forward, and it will give us a place to begin to look at how to do interventions for our students. And there's some additional, if you can go back up, right in here, up a little bit more. Although this isn't, I don't have any specific data to, quantitative data, I did want to mention that one of the things that OAS does for its middle schools, we have a work-study program. And so our students go out into the community, they work in a variety of community businesses, and they learn a great deal about different pathways, different careers that are out there, and they write a paper on their experience. The other piece that I wanted to mention is that the school has used narratives and student-led conferences, which addresses the social-emotional academical goals that are set for in these conferences. And it's a way for our teachers to communicate with parents and students about how they're doing in school. The narrative focuses on the potential of the child and their strengths, and focuses on growth over time and how the student is making progress towards becoming emotionally, socially, physically, and academically competent while also meeting the Common Core standards. And you can scroll up, go ahead, or down, I should say. The other piece of OAS is the core values. And I think these are important to note, that we focus on, we're a small school, and focus on community, environment of mutual respect and child-centeredness, priority on developing a children's sense of self-worth, commitment to meeting the children's needs emotionally, socially, physically, as well as academically, the stimulation of a child's creativity and preservation of the natural desire to learn, creation of real-life situations to make learning meaningful, choices and respect for others' choices, multi-age grouping, students' progress at individual speed, shared decision-making. We have a student council which ranges from TK all the way up to 8th grade. And we have representatives that come together and make decisions together. And that's really a big part of our school. Students are self-motivated and responsible, and students learn to self-evaluate, learn by mistakes, and set appropriate goals. And further is the structure for social emotional success. On a daily basis, a core group activity takes place in a classroom. So you could go into any classroom and you would observe students using I statements, appreciations, concerns. It's held at a time when all the classes are doing this. So let's say I have an issue with a student on a playground who's in another classroom. They can come into that class where the other student is. They may not be a student in that classroom, but they feel a part of that community, that school classroom community, and they can say, you know, Kate, I didn't like it when you did that on the playground. So there's a lot of focus on, helping them to problem solve, helping them to be able to identify when they're upset about something. And that's a focus. There's also a reflection process at our school where when there is a conflict, children think about what happened. What was their responsibility in that conflict? How could they make a different choice? And we actually have a written, they write it up we have it for the primary grades and also for the upper grades. And so it's a process of taking them through what could we do differently. It's very much, I think, RA, restorative approaches, and Open Alternative School has been doing this process with kids for a very long time. And in the curricular activities that extend beyond the classroom, we do value environmental education camping trips, and those start in 2nd grade and go up through 8th grade. This year, 2nd and 3rd grade students attended the Carpinteria State Beach, learned about the local habitats, FOSS science and social science standards were addressed. 4th and 5th grades, one class went to the Scheideck camp. FOSS science and social science, again, are addressed in these trips. And the other 4th and 5th grade class went to the Leo Carrillo State Beach, and again, the science standards are addressed. 6th through 8th grades went to Five for Big Sur, and the 6th grade students attended outdoor school in the Los Padres Forest, which I attended with them, and that was a fabulous trip also. We also focus a great deal on human rights and social justice at our school. This year, students participated, we've done this on a yearly basis, in Chalk for Peace, and the topic was, again, a social issue, an issue regarding, with the current oil spill and everything that was happening with that. Children actually we grouped them across grades. They were grouped together, and they had pre-planning time where they had to come up with what they wanted to address, what message they wanted to communicate, and you can see it's a range of ages, and they worked together to create their art and what they cared about there. I've already mentioned the work-study program, and then students participate in Choice Class. Choice Class happens every other week, where students, again, mix across grades, TK up through 8th grade, and they will be taught from the teachers on a variety of topics, or content areas, art, music, PE, and that is a time where they all mix, all grades, work together. And our community partners are the Antioch University, the Masonic Lodge, Pacific Pride, and Chalk for Peace. This year, our accomplishments, our partnership with the Masonic Lodge, we received a donation of $1,500, and they also came out and worked with us on beautifying our campus. We had a Sage Book for Schools grant. We began the TK program at Open Alternative School, which has had a very positive feedback from families who have attended. I received quite a bit of feedback at the end of the year. We've continued our partnership with Antioch University, placing a total of 7 teacher candidates at OAS this past school year, 5 in general ed education classroom and 2 in the special ed program. We have developed a school-wide FOSS and OS science plan. Playground, it's been resurfaced, and it's a safe place for students to play. Teachers are deepening their understanding and implementation of the Common Core state standards. We purchased and use a Chromebook cart, which has provided technology for assessing, which has been wonderful. Our SRI, SPI, any of our online assessments can be done easily. Also, state testing and student use in the classroom. Now an entire classroom can use computers at the same time. And our school is growing in diversity and in enrollment. I already addressed that. We increased in both areas. For future, I've put on here to continue our partnership with Antioch University, and we also are going to be holding a conference at OAS. This is a partnership with Antioch. It's in Bloom in Santa Barbara. These are best practices in nature-based urban early childhood, and with a focus on early childhood. We know how important that is. And David Sobel, I don't know if any of you know him. He is a author of Place-Based Education, and he'll be presenting also at this conference. And to continue to offer parent education meetings each trimester. That's been a big need at our school. And one last thing after, I just wanted to add to this that the other thing I think that's really important, and I want to appreciate the Data Summit today. It was a really powerful opportunity for us to come together as leaders. And definitely the need to develop an assessment plan, district-wide and school-wide, so that we have a common approach, and that's a really important piece, and I think something that I'm excited to make happen at our school this coming year. So if you have any questions, happy to answer any.
Ms. Parker?
Thank you. I appreciate your last point in particular, because this is such a time of flux. And it's not that we can ever really compare schools, because each and every student is different. But it's particularly hard now, and maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But one question I had, obviously, your data on demographics is really encouraging. Were you able to visit all of our state preschools?
Not all of them, no.
Because I'm wondering what, even when Mr. Herron was talking about the mobile Waterford graduation, I was thinking, oh, it'd be great for programs of choice to have been there. And so I think it'd be great for us to sort of think about those opportunities, especially with the preschool set, where, and it's not just OAS, but to make sure that we are inviting our schools of choice to attend these functions and to be there and just to, answer questions. And
yes, I think that's great. I mean, I've been invited many times to different panels, and I go out and it's great. And I'd like to be able to go to our preschools. And I think having that conversation and opening that up would be important.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How have we done interdistrict-wide?
Interdistrict-wide, I want to say we had maybe 8, at last year. And this year, it's still a little unknown what our numbers are going to be looking like in terms of, if we've reached that. I know we're not anywhere near 25, so I know we're under 10, I believe, at this point. But we're still getting applications in. There's still applications floating out there. So we have had people coming, though, who are outside of our district and who want to be there. So that's very hopeful. And I think also we've had some families who have recently moved into the area, so they're being granted this opportunity, even though it's past the deadline. So just that's hopeful too.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank
Miller.
you.
With that, we'll have Ms. Lockridge talk about the Gate Magnet program at Washington Elementary School.
Good evening, Dr. Cash, board, colleagues. I'm excited to present today about the Gate Magnet program. So first thing I want to talk to you about is our demographics. This is the demographics for this year. The Washington School has about 630 students. About 130 of those are GATE qualified. So I'm only going to be reporting on the students that are GATE qualified and part of the Magnet program tonight. So that's why on a couple spaces it says too small to report. We didn't want them to be identified. But it is primarily still white with a 66%, but it's become 0.5% more Hispanic, And that's probably because of the recruiting practices that have changed with the district testing all second graders. So it's broadened our base. So as far as socioeconomically disadvantaged, about 24%, which is pretty comparable to the rest of our school in general. And then for English language learners, about 8.4% are English learners. And we did reclassify 2 from GATE this year, but that's too small of a number to report as well. If we move on, special ed, again, very small percentage of special ed are in GATE, and it's primarily girls over boys, but very, very close at 52 to 48. So all students in Santa Barbara Unified in second grade are GATE tested. Haley at Whaley is our GATE coordinator, and she makes sure that every student is tested. And after that, they become GATE qualified. And once they are GATE qualified, they go into a lottery. The lottery is done downtown. Mitch Trainer's office does it, and each child that earns a spot in the lottery has the option of coming to the magnet. No special priority is assigned to Washington students that are in the home resident. It's completely by lottery. So after the lottery goes out, we host Washington Visitation Days, and parents can come and bring their children and go to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th. This year, the turnaround was really quick, so we did an extra week. And we also invited them to our open house, and then if they wanted to call and make an appointment, I gladly gave them a tour. But primarily, the parents would come in, and they would sign in and then go sit in the classroom and check out the 3rd grade, and then kind of transition to the 4th, 5th, and 6th to get an idea of the program. The barriers that exist for students who earn the magnet seat would be transportation. If they don't have transportation, they may choose not to come to the magnet program. And then just capacity. I'm at capacity with all my grade levels, so I can't necessarily take their siblings when a student qualifies. So that's kind of the recruitment process. Most of the funding comes out of the general funding. Our teachers are fully funded through that. Our PTO is very generous, and we allocate some money to GATE as well. Dr. Cash generously allowed for 4 of our teachers to go to the CAD conference, which they were very excited about. That's the National GATE Conference, and they were able to study best practices and really work with their colleagues. So for the academic data, kind of picking up on what Colleen alluded to, is with the absence of CSTs, we have to really think about what data we do have that is meaningful. And as previously been mentioned, the SRI has been implemented this year, and we had 3 testing windows. And so with those 3 testing windows, we were able to see growth in the students' Lexile level. And this was very exciting to us because we know that reading is power. So for the 3rd grade, the 3rd graders were able to go up. Hold on. The 3rd graders went up about 73 points in their Lexile level from the one administration to the next, and 4th grade went up 90 points, and 5th grade saw a growth of 58 points, and the 6th grade Lexile level went up 47 points. So the reading levels were going up as we expected to, based on the SRI. For mathematics, what I looked at was the report cards, and really what this is an average of each grade level, what their average for these different criteria on a report card. So algebra and functions, mathematical reasoning, measurement and geography, number sense, and statistics, data analysis, and probability. So the 3 on the elementary report card is proficient. So as you can see, our students in the GATE classes, at least, were averaging proficient in all of these categories. Number sense being the highest And then the area of opportunity would be the statistics, data analysis, and probability, which is pretty much in alignment to what we were studying today at the Data Summit. So that's our biggest area of opportunity for our students and for ourselves. For science, I looked at the last 2 years of CST for 5th grade because we did have that information available, and 100% of GATE students were proficient or advanced proficient. They did very, very well on the science tests. For the last 2 years, the trend has been the same. Washington in general did very well, but the GATE class 100% were proficient. So the same for the second year. Extracurricular. GATE students participate in all of our enrichment programs that we have on campus, done through the PTO, but some of the really things that they stood out for were, of course, Odyssey of the Mind, the first Lego League, and then the Math Super Bowl. That's a real commitment that not only GATE students participate in, but it is a big time factor, and we're very, very proud of the success that they've had this year and in the last couple of years. So.
What place did they come in this year?
First.
Just check.
Yeah, first place. So we're very excited about that. But it's a rigorous commitment. So they test, and all students, regardless if they're in GATE, but if they're in 4th, 5th, and 6th, are allowed to participate, and then they narrow it down through parent volunteers and testing, and then we have 2 alternates. And we try every year to represent. In the last couple of years, we've done very well, and we're going to continue that going forward. Community partnerships. We have a lot of partnerships at Washington, but not too many that are unique to GATE. We do have one with the Santa Barbara Public Library that is phenomenal because they publish the 5th grade GATE book every year, and students can go back and find their name as a published author in the Santa Barbara Library, so that's really empowering. Orphala, of course, works with our food and our garden and does the Salad Bar Ambassador program for our 6th grade GATE class. The airport, another good friend of ours, and that invites our GATE students over to do a really, really interesting aviation experiment. And then the Children's Creative Project, the UCSB, and City College. We also have student teachers from UCSB that spend half of the semester, or one of the trimesters in a GATE class, and then one of the trimesters in a primary grade class. So they get a really rich experience, and that's a really great partnership. Accomplishments. The 3rd graders do what is called the Biography Night, and it's really exciting. They're dressed up as a famous American, and they have these scrapbooks that they present on music stands. And the parents come and sit down, and I went, and a lot of the families that qualified for GATE, they came that night to check out what could happen for their child if they were to come to the magnet school. And you push the little button on the kid, and they tell you all about their life as Walt Disney or Bill Gates. He made so much money just eating a cookie. Just anyone, Amelia Earhart, the Wright brothers, the sky was the limit for who they could pick, and their enthusiasm was really, really infectious. So that was one of my favorite nights, the Biography Night. It's a major accomplishment for the 3rd graders to present and to talk and to do that research. And they write a poem, and they give themselves an award of what their accomplishments were. So it's really rich learning that happens there. 4th grade. 4th grade also likes to write, and they publish books for children that they read to their little buddies. And these are all creatively done, illustrated, and that's a major 4th grade feat. 5th grade, they're all dying to get into Mr. Nittickman's class so that they can write that class novel. And he's just a very entertaining, energetic teacher as well. But they work together as a collaborative process, and they really learn about editing. And it's really, really powerful, and it's top secret. When I walk in the room, they're like, shh, we're talking about the novel. They don't want me to know. So that just came out, and it's very exciting. You can pick up a copy in the Washington office. It's $10. The money goes to finance the next book.
And we purchase a copy for every elementary school library. So.
So yeah, get your copies today. Sixth grade, amazing production of A Midsummer's Night Dream with the actual Shakespearean language. The costumes, it was phenomenal. They also do a stop motion with the iPads, kind of and Legos that kind of tell the plot of A Midsummer's Night Dream beforehand. And so the work that went into that is just phenomenal. It's a student-directed play. Jackie Bluestein is the sixth grade teacher. She facilitates not only the tryouts and their gracious acceptance of perhaps not getting the spot that they wanted, but just a real learning opportunity about poise and theater and language, and it's just a really, really exciting night, and probably had about 200 people there that night. And then, of course, the Mass Super Bowl, which I'm still really jazzed about. That was an exciting day to see 50 other schools compete, and just the level of math that was happening in that room was phenomenal. It's the direction that we need to be going. So that was very exciting for us. Development goals. We really want to take we're an iPad pilot school too, so we want to take all of the gifted and talented strategies and all of our iPad strategies and really push the instruction up on the SAMR model so that we're using it meaningfully. And we have kids that are collaborative and they're verbal and they want to create. They're making iMovies. They're using those little Erasmus that pop up, and it's their voice telling you all about Western expansion or whatever their category is. So we want to continue to use cutting-edge curriculum and technology, but do so purposefully that aligns with our publication and collaboration goals and just our GATE philosophy. And we want to also increase coherence and vertical alignment in our GATE magnet. We have a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade GATE class. That's one teacher for each grade level. So we really want to help them align vertically. What does it look like in 3rd grade GATE for math? What is 4th grade? What is 5th? What is 6th? Because they're doing a lot of grade level alignment in our professional learning communities at the site and at the district level. So we want to also do some alignment on a GATE trajectory. Also, we really want to share those techniques because good teaching is good teaching, and all students can benefit from GATE strategies. So we want to share those strategies with our team at Washington and ensure that students who may not earn a spot in the magnet because of the lottery, but may be clustered into another class, their needs are met, especially if they are gifted and talented and need that kind of differentiation. Social emotional needs of gifted students. This is something that is very important to us. We spend a lot of time doing restorative approaches and RA circles for children. And the gifted and talented child oftentimes has a different social emotional need than the other population, and we really want to empower them and their families to understand where some of the anxiety or stress could come from. And we want the families to just be more aware of all of the benefits that the GATE Magnet program offers and what the district offers. There's a GATE library down here that I don't think parents have really tapped into, and that's an amazing resource, so we want to be more public about those opportunities. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions? Ms. Adelson?
A couple things. I didn't see in the data, unless I missed it, do you know the number for what % are students within the Washington attendance area are actually in the GATE magnet?
Oh, that's a good question. I did not extrapolate that data, but I could get back to you. As far as this year for like the 3rd grade GATE, we had 4 that were remaining on the waiting list, and now it's slowly trickling down as people decide to come or not come.
You're saying they're Washington students in other classes outside of the GATE magnet or not?
So what I'm trying to say is this year they tested all 2nd graders. Mm-hmm. We go through the lottery process just as everyone. We had 8 students that did not get a spot. Now there's only 4 students that did not have a spot, and it's slowly trickling down. Again, the barriers depend on transportation. If the families have another child, they may not want to come because, you know, they have 2 or 3 sites they might need to pick up at.
But that's how many kids are not, that are at Washington.
That were gate qualified but didn't get a spot.
And would have been at the Washington school either way?
Yes.
Or, okay.
They're
got
still,
it.
yes.
Okay. But we don't know out of the 30 or so in that class how many that is, right?
No, I'd have to look at that.
And then the other question I think that always comes up is, so the GATE program is about 1/5 of the school, correct? The student body.
Yeah.
How many, throughout the day, how many classes or opportunities are there for the kids to interact with the entire school as opposed to just the GATE magnet?
So our site is very collaborative, so there's quite a few opportunities. So one, they're going to be going for their recesses and their lunches with their colleagues, you know, second and third together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Second, we do a lot of switching. So like 3rd grade, they will switch teachers and work on the play. And 4th grade does the big California play, so there's that. 5th grade, we have sidetrack, which is through UCSB, and we do switching. It's called teaming for that section as well. And then the 6th grade has also done a rotation schedule where they mix the groups because we're trying to prepare them for junior high. So we have them rotate for science and such.
Okay.
So there's opportunities. But we do know that this group of kids will travel together, you know, for several years as well.
Mhm.
And that is something that has come
Well,
up.
I guess my question is does it seem as though it's a challenge for the entire school as far as the GATE students having sort of a cohort that's separate? Or do you feel that, because I had a child there of my own that was years ago, and
Yeah.
when I would ask him this question, he'd say, you know, the GATE kids pretty much hang together, and that was the dynamics of it. I'm just curious if that's changed.
Well, you know, this is my first year, but from what I have seen is there's a ton of school spirit at Washington, period, and there's a lot of mixing up, especially with the enrichment pieces. You know, they might be in after school robotics or field hockey together. It really just depends, I think, maybe 5th and 6th, because they've been together now 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Those bonds might be a little bit tighter. The 3rd grade, we're going to have people coming from Franklin and Roosevelt and OAS, and so there's a real eclectic mix for that 3rd grade magnet class.
Just depends.
You know, I think it really just depends. I think it can be an exciting opportunity on both sides, but we want to make sure that they have their social emotional needs met as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Parker?
I think just in general, it would be good to have 3 years of data. I think we've seen this in other ones too, where there's been sort of a mix of how much data is provided. But I think just as a standard, it would be good to have 3 years of data so we can see if there are any trends going on. One question I have that I think is probably more for the district than for you.
Okay.
And that is that over the past 2 or 3 years, the demographics of our GATE-identified students at the elementary level has changed dramatically and is almost reflective of our elementary demographics. But the GATE magnet hasn't changed much. And one question I have is, you know, when we're talking about the lottery, who decides to go into the lottery? Why do they decide to go to the lottery? And this is where I feel for you because, you know, the vast majority of GATE students stay exactly where they are, and they don't want to shift. And you know what? Those principals don't want them to go.
No, they don't.
And I feel like it really needs to be a district initiative. If we are going to have a GATE program that reflects our student population, then we have to make that a charge that's going to happen from the district level, because, you know, no principal is going to want the Washington principal to come and speak to their parents to say, your kids should leave your school, when they're like, no, our kids are well served here, and I completely get that.
Of course.
But this is beyond, I mean, we need to think globally here. We need to think about what's best for the Gate Magnet program and what's best for our community, and that is that it is representative of our students and that all of our families really understand how it's different, what the opportunities are. They may still make, you know, choices to stay at their neighborhood school, but I really feel like they don't get that full information. They're still sort of self-selected as to whether or not they're even going to come to a night to hear about it or put their kid's name in the lottery. And so I think that we really need to be thinking about the barriers.
They have to be proactive parents, for sure. Yeah.
I think what I heard Ms. Idelson asking for, and I think might be a good idea, is a breakdown of the kids in Gate, how many and
came from Washington and how many
are in the Washington boundary versus outside the Washington boundary.
Yes.
So that'd be.
I can come back and share that.
And that would relate to what
Just send
Ms.
it to me.
Parker says.
Okay, that's easier.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
G3, presentation of a new classified management job description, Director Information Systems.
So this is a job that is part of the ETS strategic plan. It's the only management position that we're bringing forward. When it was interesting, I was with the entire leadership team today, and somebody asked something about this, and I said, well, actually the board tonight is taking this up, and hopefully they'll approve it, and everyone in the room cheered loudly. Was I correct, Ms. Waganek, in my recall of that? As strong evidence of the need for this position from our school site leaders. So Mr. Rickman's here to answer any questions about the draft of the job description.
Ms. Parker?
Just, can you talk a little bit about the development of the draft? How did you decide what goes into this as opposed to some of the other positions that we have?
Brian Tangway worked largely on this, and I looked up similar jobs at other districts, San Diego Unified, LA Unified, some others, and this is a compilation of a lot of different of those of the research we did.
Any thoughts? Any direction?
Well, we've been hearing a lot about how necessary this is, so, you know, I'm all for it if we can afford it. That's, you know, my question mark, and I want to be sure that it's coming forward in a way that is sustainable.
You know, as the board knows, over the past several years, the size of the department has grown substantially, and so has its importance in the complexity of its tasks. You know, as this department goes, so does a lot of what we do, whether it's picking up a phone call to make a phone call on our VoIP system, or so. Right now, I believe I have 14 direct reports. And so and I imagine it will continue to grow as our technology needs continue to grow.
I'd like to bring this back on the consent agenda unless there's other questions.
Dr. Paz?
So my quick question is that I don't see mention in here, maybe I'm just missing it, in terms of how this position would interface with Dr. Guillermo Wong and her position.
So she's not here, but she's one of the people who is very excited about this because this person would be her direct, and I thought we put it in the job description actually, direct liaison with her position to provide programming assistance and pulling the data that she requests. So right now, because we don't have someone in this position, she has been learning SQL queries and other things that's just taking up her time that she shouldn't be doing. What she should be able to do is say, this is the data I need, and have that provided to her by the data systems team.
Since I don't see it, and I don't think you see it right now, could we see if we could put it in there in terms of...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, now thinking back, I think if I wrote up a separate sheet that had some key things that this position would do, and I think it was in that, but not in the official job description. But yes, we could add that.
Thank you.
Ms. Limon.
So Mr. Rickman kind of alluded to this. I remember in 2011 when the quasi-department, which isn't really in existence, was like 5 people, and it's grown. And we also just had a conversation, not like moments ago, about our uncertainty. And so I want to make sure that as we're thinking about this department and the potential for it to continue growing, we also understand that, you know, past boards have not been shy in thinking that this is also a place where we've had to cut in the past. And I've watched those cuts in really bad times hurt because there's not enough need. And so I'm a little worried as far as the pace of the growth of the department, not because it's not needed, but because, I mean, I started with this quasi, was like IT/information, what was it, research or something, I don't know what it was called, but you all know what I'm talking about, where it was really small. So I just want to caution us, because I don't know what the money's there right now, but 5 years, when some of this goes away, like, I don't know, and I don't know where the board would be as far as feeling like we can support this, because there's trade-offs. In order to support this, something else has to give. So
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Cash could probably speak to this better than I can, but with everything we're doing that involves technology, that wasn't the case back then. You know, we had little ad hoc wireless networks that people set up in their classrooms, and they brought in their own wireless routers. And I just can't imagine being a school district our size and not having the robust infrastructure that we have now, especially with everything else we're going to be investing in with technology over the years.
And I do think, for the record, I mean, 14 plus people for 15,000 plus students, 22 schools, 2,500 employees is not outrageous, but it's a growth that we haven't seen in our district, or we haven't experienced.
Right, and when I presented our strategic plan, you made the point of saying, I think, that you are concerned that the department, with everything it's asked to do, has been too small. So, I think that we have to balance the growth, the speed of the growth, with need.
Dr. Paz.
Just last comment. I hear my fellow board members in terms of this concern of looking at the future, and we always have to consider that. I think it's something we have to always balance. But the other side of it is, you know, here's a position, we have another position that's asking for information, asking a lot of that other person to do this. And I almost feel like, well, we are a district that is now, I think, on a path to be driven by data. And we're looking at our LCAP, and we're looking at our LCAP plan being driven by data, looking at data. We just had 2 presentations by principals looking at data. And if we're not ready to answer those questions, we're going to be blind in the future, not being able to, this board will not be able to make decisions in the future if they don't have the information they need, nor will staff or administrators to make decisions that are really critically important. And I think this position would fill a need in our district to do that in a more efficient and better way. And I think what better investment than to do that, you know, and I think this board needs to make a commitment towards that and not put it as a secondary thing and think, oh, well, we'll deal with it later, and we'll deal with it later. Well, great, make all kinds of decisions you want, but not based on data. And you can continue to do that, and this board will continue to do that. Whoever sits in the seat will continue to do that in a way that is blind. And that's, in my opinion, irresponsible.
I'll just comment on Ms. Limon. I think your question is apropos in the bigger picture. I mean, we just approved a ton of new positions. So you can't look at this one in isolation. You know, we got to look at all the ones we did. And I think it's critical that we understand what we're doing, and looking towards 3, 4, 5 years from now, is it sustainable? And it may not just be this position, but other positions.
Right, and I think I do go back to 2011, first budget cycle, 170 pink slips. And so there was nothing that I will ever forget about how difficult that was. And that was along other cuts that we had to make, and we had to make really tough choices. So I want to be careful. I mean, I think that that's part of why we had the conversation as well about an irrevocable trust, right? Because we've been through some of these hard times, and it hurts. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I bring it back on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Thank you.
With the one change that Dr. Paz has mentioned.
Absolutely.
G4, discussion of new course for San Marcos High School, Marketing Communications.
Mr. President, could we take both G4 and G5 together? They're both San Marcos High School.
Yes.
Mr. Sheldon's here, and Dr. Drotti. I just put them on separately in case there were individual questions about each one.
Thank you. As part of the expansion plan of the entrepreneurship program, we needed to add these two courses to that plan. We projected that this would come. We're at the time now. So I'll have Mr. Alex Sheldon, coordinator of the Entrepreneurship Academy, describe the specifics of those programs, of the courses.
Okay, so the first course we're adding is Marketing 203, and Marketing 203 is a marketing communications class which focuses on advertising, and it kind of aligns in two ways what we'd already started with Marketing 101, which was the introduction to marketing, but the time that the students take this, they're working on a project where they do all the marketing for a school event called Royals Got Talent. So we thought that the advertising component of this course really aligned with it. Also, with us having adjunct professors from Santa Barbara City College, the hours that they teach don't align with the hours at San Marcos. If students are just taking a 3-unit class, that class should be meeting essentially about 3 hours a week, but we have 7 hours of time at San Marcos. So by adding Marketing 203 in that fall semester for us, those hours then will better match up, and it's a benefit to our students as they receive an extra 3 units of college credit. So that was the reason for us adding that class. And then the second class is the business plan development class, which is in the spring of students' senior year. And we haven't gotten to that yet in our academy because our first cohort will be seniors next year. But the goal of this class is for our students to just work on their business plans and then prepare their presentations to pitch at business plan competitions. And we have a group of community members who have gone through a process to work as mentors to our students, and they're going to be working with our students in the class. We've been working on public speaking for 2 years, and they're going to be ready to pitch their businesses in, like, for example, a Shark Tank type environment at the Scheinfeld Center New Venture Challenge. And we also hope that we can do well there and go to other business plan competitions around California. And then we're also looking to develop a business plan showcase out of this class, where it would be a community event where our students can show off the business plans that they've created. And this is the capstone project of our academy, essentially what they've accomplished over 3 years of work.
Questions? Ms. Adelson.
Of course. So I don't see, I'm looking at the UCOP list for San Marcos. Some you did get approved on there?
So the Marketing 203, we revised the introduction to marketing and marketing communication so that this is incorporated in that class. The business plan development is not, but all the other classes in our academy have now been submitted for the to UC.
Okay, I don't see 164 mentioned anymore. Is that?
That was submitted in this last cycle, and we're waiting to hear back, and we just received approval that 201 was approved.
Yeah, we're just starting to get notices back from the UC. We heard that Math 2 and Math 2-3 and compaction were both approved.
Okay, so the list I see is Marketing 101 and 101 with a lab and 203 already on there. So what's still pending, 164?
164 and 201, I just got the email that it was approved on Friday of last week.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Does anybody want to approve these tonight?
Well, that would be great.
So moved. They sound fantastic.
And I'll second it.
Oh. No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sheldon.
Get back to work. We've got summer school.
He's got like 5 jobs.
First reading of Board Bylaw 9130, Board Committees.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is on before the board. It was actually stimulated by one request to look at how board committee minutes could be taken and reported out. But when the board bylaw was reviewed with Ms. Steele and myself, it was clear that we were a couple of iterations behind CSBA's recommended amendments to this particular board bylaw, board committees. And so those are also, was originally intended to be a single sentence change, but there are so many changes recommended by CSBA, and we reviewed them all, and they seem pretty straightforward. And so I'm here to take any direction and bring it back for your approval.
The one in yellow is the one sentence that you started out changing?
I'm colorblind, so what page would that be?
Top of page 2.
Top of page 2.
Actually, ours is green.
Mine is yellow.
Minutes of the committee meeting shall be limited to the title of the agenda item and the vote taken by committee members.
Okay, it's green there, so okay. Mine's yellow, but that's okay.
Special.
That's the one that started it, and then it went from there. Okay. Any
That is
questions
correct.
on this change?
Thank you.
Sorry, I think it took a month to do this. I apologize for that.
Bring it back on the consent?
Will do.
Okay, we have no consent items to go back to. Coming events, it's summertime. We have one meeting in July that happens to be the 7th, which is unusual. So make sure your calendars show the 7th. Anything else that's coming forward that we need to be aware of?
Wear comfortable clothes. It will be hot. A hat, sunscreen, and bring water, please, for our field trip to Happy Canyon.
July 2nd.
We'll meet at the district. There'll be detailed instructions, but
It was called a hike, but is it going to be really a hike?
it'll be a stroll, Mr.
A stroll,
Herron.
okay.
Take pictures?
Yeah.
I won't be there.
Yes, we'll take
Okay.
pictures.
Future agenda items, just want to mention that in closed session next meeting, I will be asking us to just contemplate the end of the year, halfway through, and just be talking in general about what Dr. Cash and just how it's gone. So we'll just have a sort of a mid-year review. Anything else? Close the meeting. 10 minutes to 9.
Thank you.
Sure.